with great new equipment, and it was put together by this humble being right here, my colleague Nick Marks, who will be honored. It's funded by, we're part of the New Media and Entertainment Initiative of the State of California through Economic Workplace Development through the California Community Colleges. Yes, there'll be a quiz on that later. We will be serving lunch in a different location, which you will be led to. There's a whole wonderful variety of foods. The restroom, if you haven't found it yet, is you can sneak out that door, or you can go out that door, around the building, and in the next building over. It's not terribly far. So you can plan in advance for that, right? Coffee and drinks, and let's see, what else did I forget? Nothing so far, except to introduce Nick.
Oh, my turn?
Yeah, you're up. And I know we had a specific order on the flyer you got, but we're changing that a little bit to accommodate someone's schedule. So Nick will be introducing our first speaker, and we're going to start with her. And if you have any questions or comments or snide remarks, those go to me. Any compliments, go to Nick and to our guests. Thank you all for coming. Oh, stand on me. Dan Watanabe, Director of the Entertainment Initiative Training Collaborative, my colleague, and Richard Holdridge, the former Director of Ideas. He just retired, and we're still mad at him about it, who is actually the father of all of these things.
Yeah. Morning. I hope some of you guys worked real late last night, had nice jobs. My name is Richard Mark, but everybody calls me Nick. I want to thank a few people for helping us put this together. Gentleman back there in the back, Frank K., who was kind enough to give us this fabulous dolly. I asked him for an X9, and he insisted I take the X10, so I relented, seeing how this is the newer, better dolly. And Matt Siegel back there is in the Education Committee for the Union. Our wonderful cast and crew, Doug Knapp over here. Operator, first assistant I worked with years ago, Barbara Jerome, who is representative from the Union, Mark Colosi. Our
Colici.
Colici.
Nice
to meet you, Mark. Mark is a terrific first assistant. We're going to go through all these things that they've done before in the past. Jim Chrysanthus, who is a director of photography and an excellent one, did Ghost Whisperers, the name of the show, for 5 years.
A little show,
and a few
Ghost
other
Whisperers.
shows. My dear friend Bruce Pasternak, terrific operator. And Richard Mosier is going to be going to Prague in a few days, and so he had something he had to do this morning. I offered to turn him loose and find somebody else, and he insisted on coming. Richard has done a lot of wonderful movies off the top of my head. Spider-Man, a bunch of the Spider-Man movies, things like that. Anyhow, we're going to start out this morning with Barbara Jerome, and she's going to talk about all the good things in the union. And for all of those of you that are in the union, one of the things that, since I was on the board for 20 years, that I used to get all the time was people would come up and ask me, in this situation, I got this situation, what do I do? Well, she could answer all those questions for you. Up to you, Barbara.
Is this on? Testing, testing. You do?
Nate, are we on? Oh.
Well, I'm gonna. Can you guys hear me? Okay.
You got audio on the mic, Nate?
Anyway, yes, I am one of several business reps in the Western region. We are part of a larger organization. But you know what? Before I even start that, how many people here are already members of? I know Nikki. Okay, so we have about 4 members here, from what I can tell, in the audience, and so I guess I do need to go over a little bit of information about our union. We are naturally an entertainment industry union. Unlike, there are a few other unions that participate in this field, but they're primarily, part of a grander union that has a limited piece of entertainment that would be like IBEW and NABIT. They actually do, the majority of their work is not in entertainment. And our union is completely in entertainment, whether it be our international, whether it be on stage, road shows, venues such as stadiums, and also motion picture and television production. Our particular local, which is the International Cinematographers Guild, say that 3 times fast, covers many classifications. We cover everything from the director of photography, operator, first and second ACs, and loaders. We additionally cover new digital classifications, which would be your digital imaging technician. Camera utilities have actually been around for quite some time, but they also have, a role in our digital industry. And digital utility is another new classification. Video controllers have been around a long time. They're part of our union. And publicists, still photographers, and publicists were merged into our local about 8 years ago. The International took a look and said, this local's really small and struggling because, there's just so many publicists. I believe they total about 400. And so to buff up and strengthen both our local, because they can assist us with our still photographers, they work hand in hand. They were, the International decided that the community of interest was best served by merging them into Local 600. So that's what we do. Unlike some of the other crafts based in Hollywood, we're a national local. We have offices, our national headquarters is in Los Angeles. We have offices in Chicago, Miami, and New York, of course. We started out as 3 local unions in the United States. The producers took advantage of that to create bidding wars, and the International said that's not going to happen. That's a race to the bottom, and merged us. It gives us much more unity, much more strength, and members of 600 can work anywhere in the United States. As long as you're getting your distant location provisions, you're able to work everywhere instead of having to pay dues and initiation fees to 3 separate locals. We also have contracts and jurisdiction over Puerto Rico, and that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. So it's important that I note that you should all purchase a Bubba keg. A very important item for those of you addicted to caffeine. And you must wear a Hawaiian shirt every Friday, okay? Most men, really, you look like camera if you're wearing shorts on set, even in the 30-degree weather in New York. Would you agree with that? Absolutely. Yeah. Women, it's a free-for-all. So are there any questions that you would like to ask of me? Wow.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
What kind of hats do you prefer?
Predominantly I see baseball caps out there. I have an Outback hat. I like to cover much of my head, so up to you. Yes, ma'am.
Barbara, this new field, the DIT, it's not really new, but it's kind of really catching on, and I was interested in it. And I was just wondering, I wouldn't be union. Does a union have any training, or what would you suggest, and how would you get started?
Yeah, the digital imaging technician was negotiated in 2001. It is part of the 600 collective bargaining agreement. We offer training, but one has to be a member of the local. The funds that unions are highly regulated by the government, and the monies that we take in, we are not allowed to sell products at profit. So the only income a union has is initiation fees and dues, and therefore those monies get put back into services for the members. But we have extensive training that we offer, especially with the rapid changes in technology. We have fabulous 3D classes that we do put on in conjunction with Sony. We have what we call our mega digital courses. It's a 2-day course that goes around the country. In fact, I happen to be the rep that handles some of the driest states around, so I got them to do that in New Mexico for my New Mexican members. And we've done it in Texas and New York, and I can't think where all that's traveled, but it goes on the road, and people from other states can come visit. When we did it in New Mexico, for example, I got to meet members from Texas, from New York, from all over. And so it's really quite lovely, and it gives our members a chance also to network. We have had digital data managing classes, and I went to the one in Texas. It was fabulous. And there again, people from all over. Had a lot of people there actually from Puerto Rico who came to visit and take the class. So we are probably the most training local in the IA, and in fact, it has been noted at General Executive Board meetings by the International that we go beyond what most locals do to keep our members on top of their crafts. Part of that naturally is just because the new technology impacts us far greater than any other classification. But, you know, when the Alexa comes out and, you know, we're going from this camera to that camera, I will tell you, our fabulous first ACs, you know, every time they go on set or start prepping a show, they may be working with a camera they've never seen before, and quite likely are doing that. And while unions are here, and it's a battle these days, as I'm sure you're all aware, what we do is we set a floor from which you can negotiate up. Without unions, people start negotiating at minimum wage. We set a floor above minimum wage. We set terms and conditions as to when you get your meals, what your penalties are, overtime, 6th and 7th day pay. Those are all things that a union negotiates for you. Hazard pay, which, you know, for example, producers see as a greed item, and we see it as, let's do less takes. You know, you got it already. Let's not, you know, water down the street and speed up the car without telling the operator lying there on the street. And some of these things, you know, can be handled with remote folk. Oh,
I just want to say, Barbara, when I met Barbara about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and it was on a hazard condition, and we were shooting on the top of a 12-story building, a hospital, helipad.
yeah.
Helicopter landing and taking off, and we were like on the edge of the building. If you fell backwards beyond the net, a safety net, 12 stories down, and there's a helicopter there. Well, you know, we said this is a hazard. This is a hazardous condition. We had safety meetings on it. Everything was done properly, and there were no incidents. But guess what? They would not pay the hazard pay. They did not pay the hazard pay, and then also there's an insurance aspect to this
That's
too.
the real important
There's an
part.
insurance aspect to
It's not
this.
about the money.
It's not. It's a very little amount of money. It's about it kicks in an insurance policy. So
Yeah.
God forbid, what if a blade of that helicopter broke and killed somebody?
How
You
many
know.
hazards did you get on Fast and Furious?
So anyway, they didn't pay the hazard. This is long story short. They didn't pay the hazard pay, and we said, guys, it's a hazard, and they started, you know, over $60 per person. They were having this big fight. Well, it went on for months. Barbara won that grievance, and they had to pay all that, and they had to pay some sort of penalty. So
Oh, yeah, yeah. No,
Anyway, but you know, it's a strange world. If you've worked overseas like I have, and there's no unions. I worked in Thailand with a wonderful crew, but you know, someone was killed on the movie in the construction department. Killed. Why? In the shop, they were welding at one end of the shop and painting at the other end. And some poor gentleman, you know, burned to death.
But, you know, but it's
So
not-
that's why we have unions. It's not just it's not greed. It's about, if you talk to your great grandparents and what happened to them, you know, how they used to work in sweatshops and so forth, and we still have that today. That's what it's about.
But it's not just that, you know, I was on the board for 20 years, I know Jim was on the board, Richard Mosier, who's not here right now, he was on the board. It's about your way of life, it's about safety, it's about having a regular lunch, literally, going back as far as I can remember, when non-union stuff was coming in, when we would have new contracts. And I cannot remember the last time we had contracts that we actually gained a lot ever since Reagan came in. That's another political story. Anyway, literally almost the next day, the non-union guys would lose something because we lost something. So they'd drop down a level. It's about your safety. It's about all the benefits that you get. I mean,
health and pension.
The pension. Well, the pension isn't that good, speaking as a pensioner. But it's a lot better now than it used to be, thanks to Bruce. And,
Yeah.
but it's also about this fabulous health plan that I don't have to worry about paying for. It is the best, probably, union health plan in America. It's not just that, it's having this backstop. I busted my butt to get in the union. When I got in the union, it was in the 70s, and it was harder to get in the union than it was to get a job. Guys couldn't get their kids, no, it's not, believe me, it's a lot easier now. It's,
I can answer,
Yeah.
if they want to ask questions
Yeah.
about
Yeah, yeah.
roster and stuff like
go
that,
ahead.
I'd be
Go ahead,
happy.
yeah, I want you to do that.
But back to your question about the digital imaging technician, I think, this is an assistant camera course. You guys are much better off becoming assistant camera people
Yeah.
than trying to be DITs, because a DIT has only been around for a few years, and it's gonna be gone really quickly.
It may go away because the
agree.
technology is shifting so
Every
quickly.
studio is trying not to use DITs. Fox will not allow you to have one on a television show. Warner Brothers just had a meeting to try and get rid of DITs. And even though it's a great category, the union doesn't say you must have one. So you can shoot without it, and it's not a good thing to get into. Being an assistant, you need to learn a lot of what the DIT does, because they're gonna expect you to do that stuff. But I would say don't aspire to become a digital imaging technician.
The camera is a computer now, and like the first assistant camera, I think it's not made to do the computer job. The DIT does a lot of the troubleshooting that the software usually gives.
Yeah, but
It'll help you
the
learn
camera
it.
systems are becoming so
Yeah.
sophisticated that actually, like the Alexa camera, you don't always need a DIT. You often don't need a DIT. You need a data transfer person, which is a lesser job.
That's
The
what
DIT
you
job these are different jobs. So that this whole landscape of technology is changing.
Yeah.
As a director of photography, I really don't want to have a DIT. It's
we always
it's
have
cumbersome.
them on
But
commercials.
we have on commercials, but on shooting movies, I often. I have them sometimes. Sometimes I really don't want them. As the camera gets better, I don't need one. So-
As a union proponent, I must say that we want to have digital imaging technicians on set. We still feel that there's an important position for them. There are some directors of photography who prefer to work without them. But I have also directors of photography that are very upset that the companies are trying to eliminate them, and for the companies, it's just a money-saving thing. So if it comes to, anytime it comes to being in control of the data, it needs to be in the camera department. So whether it is a digital imaging technician who is guarding against catastrophic data loss, or a digital loader, it's fine. It's in the camera department. It should not be in the hands of a PA. It should be kept in the workflow from the director of photography. We feel that that's crucial. Producers are always trying to find ways to undermine the contract and find a cheaper way to do it. I will tell you, post-production houses are hurting for money because of the changing technology also, so they're trying to creatively find ways that they can get things, under post. So you're gonna see a lot of jurisdictional issues right now, but anything to do with the visual image belongs in the camera local and should be, guided by the director of photography. The image should never be out of 600's hands. That's our position. I think for the most part, the producers do agree with that. They're just trying to figure out how they can do it that way and also make it cheaper. And that's why I think they're getting rid of so much of the coloring on set, which is what your digital imaging technician does, is they're usually in a tent with the director of photography, and they got a waveform, and they're locking in colors if that's possible on raw data.
It depends
Whole
on
nother thing.
sometimes you're on a show and you need a DIT. You're doing multiple cameras.
You're matching.
Complicated. You're doing green screens. You need a DIT.
Yeah.
Other shows, you may have two cameras. You don't want to be slowed down by the DIT, but you need a data transfer person. You see, that's
Right.
big. You still need to handle the data, but you're
Right.
not doing the on-set coloring. So
And
there's
that's critical.
Yeah.
That data transfer is, it's a combination of the assistant's role and the laboratory. As our still photographers have discovered, they end up doing a lot of lab work that they never had to do. And it's
Yeah.
all because of the computerization and
Yeah,
and
they're
electronic data.
creating a filing system for the data. They're looking through the data to make sure it's fine before they send it to post. They're making redundant copies, labeling and sending to post, pretty much the way our loaders did with film. Instead of taking film and taking it to a dark room and swapping it out and labeling and whatever, now you've got, a card. Or, whatever, you're taking it in, putting it on a hard drive, or you're shooting on a hard drive and you're making redundant copies. So there should always be at least 2 copies of your data, and they should not be in the same place. Okay? Sending a messenger with all your data, oh, I've made copies and we're sending it to post. Well, if something happens, it's all gone. So anyway, I think we're all kind of on the same trail here, yes.
With the pushback for DITs, is that going to create more of a demand for the data transfer person or data or digital?
Well, that demand is already there for managing the data.
Right.
That really is current and crucial. With S-Log and various of these raw forms of recording, you're going to find probably less demand for a DIT on the set because there isn't as much
Right.
coloring going on. It's recorded raw. All of that decision-making is shifted to post now.
Well, but they send the metadata or,
Absolutely. yeah.
so that there is the function of them telling post what the director of photography wants.
I personally do DIT job and I do first assistant camera, and I personally saved the life of a first assistant camera many times because they don't know about the camera. They know about lens, about like distance, about how do the real job of when they roll the camera. But the camera when it gets stuck and the software doesn't work, the first assistant camera doesn't know what to do.
Well, they're
most
not
of the time.
engineers. Yeah.
So I'm really sorry, but the DIT really a lot of time.
Well, that's part of the class. Our assistants do know
No,
what
no,
they're
I-
doing.
I'd much rather give it to you anyway. My job's hard enough.
The question is,
Everything falls on the first assistant to begin with. They expect him to know everything, but having someone with a more of an engineering background, like a digital imaging tech, very valuable. But I'm just saying, studios are, as we've heard, trying to find ways to cut back. And now that there's less and less coloring going on the set, you may find that
But the union is advocating, and
Strongly.
it will be a big fight in the next negotiations, but we're advocating that this is a necessary position.
It's the same issue with the stereographer. Many DP don't want stereographer on the set, but like many DP, they don't know what means parallax, positive parallax, negative parallax. So it's just a matter how you work, how much professional you want to be on the set.
Yeah.
And just last question on the data manager, has the union decided if they are going to kind of create that position or will that just fall under the loader?
It's the loader position.
So it will stay, even though it's digital management and not necessarily film, it will still be a part
Yes.
of the loader position?
Yes, in fact, while the producers are arguing because our contract was created in a different age, it says film loader, so we are arguing over the classification, but they are in general paying the loader rate or above.
How you get in the union?
Good question. Well, there are a couple ways to get in the union. Most of our people come in, well, I'd say 50-50 really. You can come in getting 30 union days in a 12-month period. Now, some of our classifications are not rostered, so you can, under the Taft-Hartley Act, get those 30 days. That would be your digital imaging technician. It's not a rostered position. And the digital utility is not a rostered position. Pluses and minuses to that. The plus side is you can get 30 days and join, and that's how you do it. If an employer is willing to hire you and you keep in job for 30 days, then you've got the skill level, that the producers want. The roster is something that applies to most of our positions: director of photography, operator, ACs, loader. All historically, the producers wanted them to have 30 days of paid experience. And at that time, that usually meant you came up through the studio system at a loading department or camera department, and if you could keep your job for 30 days, hey, you know, if Warner Brothers kept you for 30 days, you were qualified and you got on the roster. When the 3 locals merged, however, we had the issue that the roster only applies in the 13 western states. And so as a compromise between the producers and the union, those positions that require roster status, you can also get in if you have 100 non-union days in a 3-year period. They all have to be in one classification. So if you've been a second AC, or first and second are considered interchangeable. Contract services administers the roster. We don't. So when you come up against that hard wall, call us for help. It's not us. They are funded by the producers, and they work for the producers, and it's the producers' roster. So, but yeah, as long as you can keep your paycheck stubs, very crucial. And in fact, you should always keep your paycheck stubs, because sometimes, and it's usually an error, a payroll company or a producer doesn't put enough hours into your health and pension.
And call sheets too, keep those too.
Call sheets are helpful
I have all
for
of my
contract
paycheck
services,
stubs
but
for the last
you
30
always want to
years.
keep your paycheck stubs, yeah. It's just like, get a box, a shoe box, and every year put your paycheck stubs in there. And check to make sure you got all your hours contributed.
Okay, one of the gentlemen I was talking with the other day was saying, well, a friend of his had to bring in this and bring in that, they wanted call sheets. Exactly, specifically, what do you require for people to keep, to bring in as proof? So that when they go to work, they know what to take home with them.
Well, there again, you know, this is contract services rules, and I will tell you, I'm an organizer and what I call a contract cop. I'm the one who files grievances on your behalf and walks to set looking for violations and organizes non-union things. That's the other way to get your 30 union days, is to get on something. Give us a call. Okay, call me. We say it is not anonymous. You can call confidentially. We do never reveal our source or even what department, you know, a report came from, because we do our best to protect everybody. But 50% of our members come in on organizing drives, where they act, you know, it's sometimes a member who's calling because they want their benefit contributions, and sometimes a non-member calling because he wants his roster days. And that happens in, you know,
I'm
Grip
working 18
Electric.
hours a day, I get paid $150 a day. I'm first assistant camera, and like, it's like living.
Give me a holler.
Yeah,
Give
you
me a
know,
holler. I'd love to talk
about
to you.
everybody up here's done that.
Yeah.
We appreciate, that's how I got in on the strike.
50% of the people gets in doing, you know, like refiring job, but they should not do it. So it's kind of like confusing. You know? They all did that, but 50% of people call to tell that there are movies. That
I think
should
you'll
not
get
be
in the
made.
union, you sound pretty tough.
Yeah, and we also,
You
I
really want this.
I will tell you that we have a woman in member services, write down this name, Romney, R-O, M as in Mary, N as in Nancy, E. Lovely lady. She actually will give you copies of the information that contract services requires you to bring to them to get on that roster. And if you can go to csatf.org and look at what they say, you know, you have to bring in to get on the roster. You know, you're going to have do an I-9 form and an application and, you know, picture ID and yada yada. But contract services tends to take the position that they want to keep you out. And so you'll come up against, Nikki's been through this. So you'll come up against that wall. That's when you call Romney or call a business rep and say, look, this is the runaround they're giving me. What can you do? Romney and Josh in member services would be more versed with that, because they're the ones who interface with contract services all the time. But you're probably better off getting the roster information from Romney, from us, because she's in our office, than from contract services, because we've taken it and tried to make it intelligible.
They're really anal about the paperwork over at contract services. If it's going through a payroll company, it's a lot easier, because you can make one phone call to the payroll company and they'll send all the information over to contract services. But a lot of the times, you know, if you're working non-union, low budget stuff, you know, you'll be getting personal check and, you know, not a lot of information, so.
Cash.
Yeah, cash, it's cash, you're
Keep those
pretty much
call
screwed,
sheets.
but
I got in
keep
on
your
a
call
strike,
sheet,
but I still had to provide
Yeah, and-
those, and I worked on music videos. I worked on 80 music videos in those 3 years I was coming. So
Right.
I had
Yeah, and
all
if
these
it's like-
different productions, and I had a big stack of paper, you know.
Right, and if it's a personal check, they want a copy of the check and your deposit slip. And then, you always have to get a letter from the producers, unless it's a payroll company
Yeah.
and they handle it, but if it's not, you get a letter from the producers, and they're very specific, so you should contact contract services or, you know, 600 to find out. A lot of people have like templates of the letter, cause they want it exactly, I mean, I had problems with, you know, they wanted it on company letterhead, and some companies don't have letterhead, and, you know,
Try
the
to get
whole
that
thing, so-
letter right away, too,
Yeah,
because
exactly,
the company
'cause
may
companies
vanish.
go out of business or they disappear, so,
Yeah.
yeah, so
The
just
LLCs
keep
are
really, really good records as you're working of, you know, all your paperwork, keep it all together.
Yeah, just keep, yeah.
And you
keep
can
a
turn it
file.
in, you don't have to turn it in all in one big lump, you don't have to turn in your whole 100 days at once. So if you turn it in as you go, contract services will let you know if there's something wrong or they need something else, or, so it's a lot easier that way, so you're not
The
trying to
copies
track
only.
down stuff from,
Only give them copies
Yeah,
of
keep-
things, never
keep your
give
own
them an
records.
original, cause they will lose it.
We good? Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Oh, what's the, how much do you have to pay to get in?
I knew someone was
knew
gonna. There again, it depends upon classification, and that is information that I don't deal with. But Romney she'll give you all that information, because she deals with, applications.
yeah.
About more than we like.
Camera assistant's roughly $6,000.
Is it $6,000 now?
I think it was 5.9 something when I joined.
They're pretty
years
good
ago.
about making payment.
Yeah, they give you payment deals and stuff.
I think it was 1,100 when I got in, or $9.
Just make sure you make your payments or they'll.
But in those days, we had cameras that were on wagon wheels and stuff.
Yeah, there's a 2-year period to pay it off, so.
Any more questions? Thank you, Barbara.
Shall I leave?
No, you can stay if you want, but when Richard gets here, you serve your seat, stay there for the time being, if you like.
Okay, then.
I'll get it
Hi
in
to
my
Richard
seat.
as
I'll
well.
get it in my seat.
Makes it look like we're a full house.
Oh.
Oh, okay, well, I guess I'm up now, and I'm not really used to doing this type of stuff. I guarantee you, like I did with Mark, I will mangle everybody's name if I can even remember it. My one thing about old age. Anyway, okay, I've been in the union about 40 years. I got into optical lineup, which nobody does anymore, I don't think. And I moved over into production, because like Barbara said, if you're in a category, you can move to any position in that category without a problem. All you gotta do is get somebody to hire you. We have a terrific list of guys here. Mark, you did weeds, you're doing weeds, right?
Right now, yeah.
And yes, he's bringing us samples.
I just inhale
I wish
deeply
I
around
could.
it.
It'd be a whole other
I
party.
bet you get that all the time.
Leslie Walden would have something to say about that.
Anyway, you can see this is my front box up here. It's kind of like belongs in a museum. Did about 500 shows. I used to do sitcoms. So I'm not gonna be your guy as far as doing prepping and what to take on location. We have Mark for that, and Richard, when he comes in, they're gonna really talk about that. Not to mention, they're gonna talk about the shots that they do that are really tough, or the things that we screwed up. What I wanted to do, for a long time, I've wanted to do some kind of a class or workshop on teaching assistant camera. Problem is you really don't learn to be an assistant cameraman sitting around talking about it. You don't even learn it that much during rehearsals. Where you learn to be an assistant cameraman is where the AD says, roll 'em. The whole world changes. Because all of a sudden, all this stuff that you've been playing with and trying and doing all these things and all the mistakes you made, they don't count anymore. What you're doing from now on is going to go on, in my case, film, these days some kind of digital setup, and once it's gone, everybody in the world's gonna see it. Hopefully you get a chance to see it yourself. So basically what we're gonna do here today is try and talk to you about a lot of things that we all do differently. Some of it's the same, but they get into dailies and it works. And hopefully what you'll get is choices. So that whatever works for you, works for you. What I may say, I have dyslexia, which most of the guys didn't know. Bruce knew it because I worked with him for 4 years. But most people didn't know I have dyslexia. So I had to learn a whole different way of doing things. Where guys would take copious notes, I had almost nothing on there. It was all up here. Where guys were really good at measuring things or looking at something saying, guy's 10 feet away. Man, I couldn't tell you if he was 5 feet or 10 feet away. You know, didn't matter, because I found ways to get around that. I had images in my head. The images were bigger, they were closer. The images were smaller, they were farther away. There are a million little tricks and little tips and little things that you can do that will help you in all these things. And that's what we're going to try and give you. And we hope that you'll ask questions. We have a couple of rules. Obviously, cell phones off. One other thing, nobody touches the back of this dolly except the guys up here. Because this arm comes down, you're going to lose something that fast. That's a quick way out of here, I guarantee you. You know what I mean? We're not going to give you a second chance. You play with that, you're gone. And Frank is back there with a big smile on his face right now. So what we're going to start with first is I'm going to let Mark talk about some of the things that he does when he preps a show. He does locations, he does single camera things, he's done some features.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've done a lot of that stuff. So guess what, Mark? Step right on up here if you would. By the way, feel free to ask questions. If you don't want to ask them out loud, write them down on the cards we gave you. We'll get to them later on.
You want me to stand up?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, God.
Hey, look, you make me look so small.
Good morning, you guys. I don't know what to say. The best thing I ever did was sit in a panel in front of these guys. When I get a call, they say, hey, would you be available to do something? I say, okay, what is it? Where are we going to go? What's it going to be? Every job will have its own approach. Every single job will have its own way to attack it. Whether you're going to go in the jungles, you're going to go in the cold, you're going to go in the desert, everything will have to be prepped according to the script. And it's pretty basic. All these guys will tell you the same thing. So if I'm going to do a project, okay, let's say I got a call to do torque. And I said, okay, we're going to be shooting motorcycles at high speed in the dirt. Okay, what are we going to need? So I prepped everything for like high speed, vibrations, that kind of stuff. And everything was going to be remote focus. I didn't know how crazy it was going to be till I got there, but it was crazy. It was like, we had a rock video director, first time directing it, and it was from the producers who did Fast and Furious. And because the box office was so good, they decided to do a motorcycle version of it. And that's all well and good. I'm a motorcycle guy. I thought it would be the perfect thing to do, and it was a phenomenal experience, but like, we sent 4 people to the hospital every day, sometimes more, and people were dropping like flies. And talking about hazards, I get 70 hazards a day, you know,
70.
And that's unheard of. 70. You know, the suits came down from Warner Brothers, and who's getting 70 hazards a day? We said, we are. And they stand around the set, and we're doing 100-mile-an-hour takes down a freeway that's closed, and our faces are this far off the ground, and we pulling focus, and all this crap. They said, look, okay, this has got to stop. This has got to stop. You guys, no way, you're making twice as much on hazard than you're on your own rate. And they said, okay, whatever you want us to do. I said, after 10, you pass it off to somebody else. Well, you're doing so many takes. We ended up having craft service guys pulling focus, you know. Whatever, we got it done, and it's just, when every time you get a new project, no matter what it is, commercial, rock video, understand the script, understand the demands of what you're expected of. I have a theory, it doesn't make any sense, but to be a good loader, you should start off as a director of photography. Because then you'll know what's expected of DP, your operator, your first, your second, and loader. Because as a loader, you can cover all their bases and make their jobs easier. Because their jobs are super hard. So yeah, you know, focus pulling is a crazy career, and you tell people what you do, you say, what? You've done that? What? Like, what is that? You know, your eye focuses automatically, so should a camera. But it doesn't work that way.
What kind of special equipment do you like to use, or what do you have that may be unique to you that some of these other guys might be interested in?
So you guys are getting in, I guess, right? I guess for an AC, the best advice I can give you guys is to know what's expected of the guys on ahead of you, and you can make their job easier, which will make you invaluable. If you can make your DP's job incredible, even if it's getting him coffee, whatever it is to make his head clearer and more focused, will make you so invaluable. Your operator, get on his frequency, figure out how he works. Don't ask any demands. Trust his eye, because he's gonna save you. He'll save you before anything. I got the opportunity to work with Bruce last week, and I've worked with everybody in the industry, and there's a lot of gifted operators out there. And Bruce could tell me on an HD camera where my focus curves were, where I was edgy, where I had them, where I didn't have them, and I called the DIT. I said, buddy, what's up? Oh, your steak was perfect. It was absolutely stellar. So, Bruce, how'd I do? Well, you're really edgy here, and you were short there, and then you came around here, and you were a little
I went through
slow.
4 years of that.
And I'm like, oh my God, dude, you're absolutely right. I said, my God, I know what you
Is there any special equipment or anything that you use that maybe the other guys don't use, or you think that really everybody needs and a lot of guys don't get?
The Hiltis are coming out, and everyone's got those now. Those are the automatic rangefinder things, and I'm old school, so I still have a metal tape, and I still have an old Ray-Bone, and I guess now in the HD world, you guys be careful of the video focus assist, because Panasonic has one. It's called Red Focus, whatever they call it, and it doesn't work. They'll get you fired immediately. Take it from me. And but trust your focus assist. Learn it well, because that's what's saving you right now. Because I know all you guys came up with actors who hit marks, found their light, never moved.
Right.
And I got to tell you, take one as a rehearsal. And God bless these actors today, but they're just flying. They're just winging it. Like last night, I was on a 150 on Weeds, and I love the actor. He's a great kid, but this kid was like all over the place, and every take he did it differently, and everybody's watching, and I'm like,
how do you set the focus for that? I mean,
you don't.
Because you can't go back and
You start off wide, that means you see the floor, you can't put marks down, so you're winging it. You're gonna wing it. Your whole life's gonna do it. And you'll get good at winging it, not to sound like a Shaolin monk, but you're gonna have to zen into it. You're gonna have to get into it. You're gonna have to study the shots, study your actor, his mannerisms. It's gonna change every day because of his moods. I'll tell you what's important is a dolly grip. If you know, if you trust your dolly grip, that's great. But let me tell you, after all the years I've been doing it, the best thing I've learned is when you're with a dolly grip, to mark the dolly. Because you're gonna do all your stuff perfectly, and if this guy is having an off day, he's gonna wreck everything, and it's gonna fall on your shoulders. But if he sees you marking the dolly, that'll give you a reference. It's not a mark he's gonna hit sometimes, but it'll give you a reference to correct it. You know, he's 4 inches short, he's 6 inches over, and that'll give you at least a fighting chance of getting
get
it.
them floating the dolly a lot of times too, because they have to.
Yeah.
That means the dolly, they have to move the dolly one way or another during the shot to get the shot the operator wants.
I did an episode with Jim a couple months ago on No Ordinary Family, and I wasn't getting the shot. He walked up to me. Huh?
Which one was it?
The one down in the parking lot where Chickless comes out.
Oh, yeah,
And he what's the story? I said, buddy, Chickless is doing something different every take. My dolly grip was brain dead. It's like just moving it for the hell of it. I don't have a fighting chance. He said, park the dolly. Boom, I nailed it and we were done.
Another thing, there's another thing, that it's a collaboration. And if you have an inexperienced actor, or actor doesn't, sometimes the actor actually doesn't know, maybe a kid, and he actually doesn't know that if he screws up his 150 mil close-up, he's not gonna make it in the editing room. They'll throw that shot aside. So, you know, Mark says to the operator, I need some help here, or the DP. So it depends on the relationship you have with the actors. So I'll go over and tell Michael, you know, we're not getting your close-up, and he'll understand that. Because, but you know, you have to tell him in a very firm way, a nice way.
Right.
That, you know, if you move that much this way, we can't get it. If you do this, we can do it. You know, because it's the physics of it. The actors, when they start to realize, gee, why didn't my close-up make it in that scene? And they go,
Right.
oh yeah, they were having trouble with the focus. Oh yeah, if the actor's smart, they'll learn that. Kenny Nishino, great focus puller, he's retired now. I was his intern for Vilmos Zsigmond on The Witches of Eastwick. It was an anamorphic widescreen picture, Jack Nicholson, Cher, Susan Sarandon, Michelle Pfeiffer. Well, Kenny Now, anamorphic focus, remember, it's half of what regular 35 millimeter. So he didn't over tape the actors. When I noticed something, he really didn't use that. He used that tape measure very discreetly. But when he brought out that tape measure on Jack Nicholson, Jack would go, "Tough one, Kenny, huh? This was a tough one." And Kenny would say, "Yeah, Jack, it's pretty tough." Jack knew
he's old
not to
school.
fuck around. And
That's
Jack
wise.
Nicholson, greatest technical actor I've ever seen. Crazy guy on set, hit all those marks.
Right.
When he had to. When he knew he had to hit those marks, he would hit them. And he would put his arms, his hands, his face exactly where it needed to be for focus. And you would never know that from the performance, that it was a highly technical performance.
Which is a really good point, is that you guys should know your lenses inside out, because as an operator, you should not get in our way. And so that if you know the lenses and you know that it's a difficult shot, a 275 millimeter close-up, take your marks, take your tape, put your marks on the floor. But if it's a 25 millimeter and you're outside at an 11 stop, don't get in the way and don't pretend that it's a 275, because I worked with an assistant last year who drove me crazy, because every single shot she treated as if it was a 275 millimeter close-up with the actors going all over the place. And after every take, she was just nervous. She would play everything back now that you can do that on video. And she got in the way. I would never hire her again. So that if it's an easy shot, don't pretend it's a difficult shot, and know your lenses. And
there's like these tricks you guys are talking about. I had an assistant, it was actually in Canada, and he was very slow. He was a good guy, but he had this quality of holding up the whole show. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Well, we're doing marks." Marks? I went for coffee and back. What's going on? Well, he was going around and measuring, and then dropping little pieces of tape. Measuring, dropping tape. And we're not seeing the floor. And finally, after a couple days of that, I said, "Look, give me your metal tape measure."
Metal tape measure?
Your metal tape.
So when he pulls it back.
No. I said, "Give me your metal tape." And I said, "Look, whack, down, there's the camera, hold it there, boom, across the floor. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, with a piece of chalk. I marked the whole room. Then I did another line out here. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, da-da-da. Oh, here we need 8.5, 9.5. All in chalk. I did that in like 2 minutes. Like the whole set was marked. Who did I learn that? I learned that from Linda Morgenstern, my first assistant. Don't hold, the actors are sitting there like this.
Oh, man.
That's the worst thing. Don't hold the actors up. They're ready to go.
You'll know it.
Oh, so then I said, "What are you doing? You're making this big show. Holding us all up,
Mark came up with a word that I use all the time, Zen. And again, having dyslexia, I can't tell the distance. I had to literally configure my brain to work different ways. Nobody knew this. But it allowed me to really get into the technical aspects and understand how things work. I had focus wheels, which I didn't have to use after a while, so that I understood what my depth of field was, what my circle of confusion was. See this little thing up here? That's a circle of confusion. Basically, you have about 2/3 in front, 1/3 in front and 2/3 in back. Now, for myself, I always played focus a little close. It depended on how much light I had and how much leeway I had, because when you rehearse, people get out and rehearse. It's like, talking, whatever. Once they say roll them, pressure changes, people move in. People don't lean back. You want them leaning into focus. You don't want them leaning out of focus. With these wonderful lenses that you have now, you have sharp, sharper, and sharpest. Really, am I right?
Yeah.
And literally, they will be in focus, and you'll watch the thing change because they're moving around. Sometimes you just have to find a spot where you put the focus and let them make that movement. But you're talking about doing the set. You shouldn't have to do that. You should understand, if you know your lens well enough, you take a back mark if they're going to be, like we used to have this guy used to do this 25-foot walk all the time. And the thing was stop and go, and you had to have the shot, keep them the same size. Well, you can't accordion the shot. You got to start at one speed on the zoom and then move back and increase the speed as he's getting closer, because you can't have him doing this in the frame. So you have to be able to do that. So what you do is you get the back mark and you get the front mark, and you trust yourself. You feel it. Now, I could never walk up and say, look at things, and, okay, I put it here. No, but I could walk up to a lens and go about like this, and it'd usually be pretty close enough to get away with it. You know what I mean? it's trusting yourself, and you do this all the time.
It comes with confidence and experience.
Right, and your good assistants do this, and I have guys in other, you get guys coming up to you, how did you do that shot? You know, I used to do sitcoms where I had 3 guys who'd come up to me and say, how'd you do that shot? Just kind of, you know, it just felt right.
Right.
You know,
Can
people would
I-
say, well, you do this and you do that. I couldn't tell them how I did it, I just did it. It worked.
You know, something these people might be interested in, I think it's always a good thing to discuss, and Mark, you'd be the perfect guy to do this, is the protocol with respect to the key first and the structure on set.
Yeah.
You know, that might be something that these folks, because there's nothing worse than walking onto set not knowing, you know, who is above you, and, you know, there are certain protocols. Can you?
Can I just talk about that for 2 seconds? I
Sure.
went to college here, I graduated here. 2 things out of this college really made my career. None of them had to do with the college, they had to do mostly with 2 guys I met. One guy I met who got me in working as a electrician work during the summers, and 1 semester a year. His father was the last of the contract gaffers. I learned how to operate on the set, I learned how to be part of the set, I learned the structure. And I get this from people, because we get guys who come in here taking our software classes. They complain all the time, these new guys come in, they don't understand how to function on the set. The other one was a friend of mine who got me into camera because he said, hey, we got a driver job over here. But the point I'm trying to make is when I finally got on set doing camera work, I didn't know beans about the equipment. And I really honestly did. You know, I knew it was a camera, et cetera, et cetera. But I got away just fine because I understood how to function on the set. I got 1 day call and I didn't stop working. And I learned the equipment. Equipment you can learn.
Yeah, set etiquette is probably the most underrated thing you'll ever know. And you'll just, you know, you got some sharp cookies, you're already here, so I already know you'll be fine. But you know, you'll be constantly, you'll be absorbing data the whole time you're at work. You're just constantly taking things in, if you know, and that just gives you a fighting chance. That just gives you a chance at that. The rest is up to you. But protocol is super important. There are some assistants that don't have to do anything. They can sit there and just pop it, you know, and that's great. And God bless them. But everybody's work, in my opinion, is so important that the very, very last thing to seal the envelope is this. And if I screw that up, then everybody from the top to the bottom, this work is in the toilet. And you go from 0 to 0 in a nanosecond.
You can do
And,
100 shots that are fantastic, incredible. And I guarantee you the one they're gonna remember is the one you screwed up.
And everybody sees it right now because of video assist or the monitors on the set.
It's not just that. One of the things I used to do was, I'd get to be friends with the editor. And I learned this from something that happened a long time ago. I was working on a thing when I first started, and they peeled off the operator to go do a second unit shot. And I was still new, and I was over there, and I did the shot just fine, and I was doing all this stuff great. And I wanted to go see it in dailies, and they were showing it in a big theater before they had a lot of the stuff. And I walked in, sat in back of the theater, and there the DP, the operator who was the DP at the time, was up there bitching that I was screwing up the shot, and it was obvious as hell it was his fault. So the point is, you never know who's talking or who's seeing or going through what you're going through, and you never know who's covering your butt when you're not there. The reality is, once it's in the can, you don't get it anymore, you know? So that was one of my tricks. I got to be friends with the editors on the shows because maybe, you know, most of these guys are pretty good guys, and if he's back there talking about a shot that isn't good or something I screwed up, which didn't happen, thank God, very often, he's making me not look so bad.
Well, I just interject, I know this is the AC
Go ahead.
portion, but
Go ahead.
when we talk, we have orientation meetings at the local, the last Friday of every month. And one of the most important things, I mean, we go into great depth about the health plan and the pension plan and the contract and whatever, but really something extremely important is we tell people you need 3 things to make it in this business. You need to have a great skill set. You need to have a network. Connections are really important. And the last, but certainly not the least, is that you need to be someone that people can get along with. If people can't stand you for an hour After 14, forget about it. You will not be invited back the next day. If the key first is doing something, don't step on him, you know? You gotta know your A camera, your B camera, you know? That loader today is the DP tomorrow. So please, you know, you might be able to get away with 2 out of the 3, but it's really unusual if you don't know your etiquette and if you're hard to get along with. That's a real tough one, you know, and sometimes you gotta look in the mirror and go, you know, maybe it's not everybody else, but it's very important to be pleasant. Am I right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You spend more time on the set than you do with your family, and you really need to get along there.
And in a 12-hour, 14-hour day, you literally, your brain goes through cycles. I could always tell when it was getting to be 12 hours because I'd start talking about stupid jokes. I figured, okay, I've been here 12 hours,
Yeah, but
right?
at least you're joking, not
Yeah.
screaming.
Right.
13 hours, I was depressed.
13, that's a short day.
Short day.
For you guys it is. I did sitcoms.
We're having lunch at 13.
How do you think I did sitcoms?
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, let's get into some of the equipment a little bit, real quick on something like this. One of the things you always want to make sure, you've got to check everything. Trust nobody. And I know we have some gentlemen here, or maybe a lady or two, I don't know, from rental houses. Everybody's got their own way of doing stuff. I mean, I've got my way. You may have 3 guys, for example, on a sitcom, you have 4 guys on a camera, used to be 3. You got 4 guys on cameras. 3 of them are gonna want the same thing, and 1 guy like me, usually me, is going to want something different. And you're wondering, why the hell does he want it that way? Because it makes us, it's the way we work, it's the way we function. You have your own way of doing things. Some guys will stand next to a camera like this and work and stuff. Now you got the monitors, which, you know, like Mark, I don't really trust those things. They're great for using in certain circumstances, which hopefully we'll get into. But the action, one of the things I always tell people is, the action's out there. You know? That's where your attention has to be, out there. Can I get you to step up on the camera here?
Do
for
not
just a
get
second?
glued to the monitor.
Yeah, you know, I found them, I mean, they're great. Monitors are terrific when you got guys settling in a 2-shot or 3-shot or something like that, and you see one of them backing out, you know, and you can widen out a little bit to save the operator so you still got the shot. Why don't you hop up here for just a second, I'll show you what I mean. Now, everybody works different, but myself, the way I worked is I was out here, I got the zoom control here, and I'm back here. Now rehearsals, it's all different, but when they start pulling the trigger, I'm back here, and I'm literally behind the operator's shoulder. Go ahead, put your hands on the windows and stuff, and, you know, bring that thing down for yourself.
Breaks up.
Okay? Okay, we probably can't see because it's blind.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, but whatever. Anyway, so I'm back here. What this allows me to do, and I did sitcoms, so I got notes and stuff like that, and maybe the other guys don't have. But even if I don't have notes, it's all about how you set yourself up. If you're gonna do tough shots, and I used to do shots, guys coming out of mirrors, carrying over here, dump into there, throw a cassette into the fireplace, and it's all this long thing. And you're doing this with 300 people back there, and most guys in single camera shows aren't doing half the stuff you're doing. So you're back here, and I can talk with my operator, I can pay attention to his grunts, and you gotta learn your operator. Believe me, you gotta understand when he's having problems, because they'll get little moves that start grunting at you, and you have to get the feeling. And also, I'm here, he can talk to me, I can talk to him, he can talk to me. But the thing is, I can see my notes, I can see the lens, and for myself, again, with dyslexia, what I would do, and a lot of guys do this, I take big white tapes, and because these numbers going fast, I can't see. I don't know, maybe Mark can see them, maybe you guys can see them. I can't see them. But I wouldn't bother with all these little in-between things. I'd have like 50 and 40, and I had them big out there where you couldn't miss them. You know, so that when they went by, and I didn't care if it was 45 or 50, I put a note on there, and I knew where 44 or 43 was in between the tapes. But that stuff's whipping by in a hurry maybe sometimes, and you gotta be able to see that stuff. And if you're wrong, I guarantee your operator is you're gonna hear about it from your operator and God knows who else in the process. You know, so I'm out here, I can see the focus, I can see the zoom, but the main thing is, I don't have to turn my head. All I have to do is glance right over. Yeah, I'm looking at him all the time. And the thing that I hate about the monitors, and that's fine, if you guys get used to them and it works for you, that's great. But there are a ton of little subtleties that actors do that are gonna cue you what they're gonna do, that they're gonna stand up now, they're gonna turn around and do this. You know, they're talking over here, and you know because of rehearsal, their next line's gonna be over here. There's that little cue, or that little word or whatever, that's gonna move you from here to here, that you're gonna see from the actor, you're not gonna get off that monitor. And little subtleties, and sure, you can do the focus off of that.
So-
It may be fine on TV, but it ain't gonna be fine on the
So
big
both of these guys will see that if I'm gonna get up, I do this first, and then I get up. Actors will tell you what they're gonna do. Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
they
tip
look
off.
at that too.
Also, if you're watching the actor, the shot on the monitor may be here. And if you watch the actor, you may see that his foot will move before, the actor will do this. You'll see that foot move. It gives you this millisecond you anticipate, and then suddenly, you know, you really, watching the actor is very, very, very important.
If an actor's gonna go that way, often he'll do this first, lean the other way, and then go. So, learn your actors, like you said.
Yeah.
Study them, it'll take you a half a day to get kind of familiar with what they're gonna do. And it may vary a little bit, but you'll find that happening time and time again. They'll tell you what they're gonna do.
When I moved up to operator, that was one of the hard, as an assistant, half a day, like you said, you learn everything, it was like second nature. As an operator, when I moved up, it took me a while to think to that level, okay? That's the other thing, when you're an assistant, and you're starting out, and you're brand new, or you haven't done it for a while, there are a whole load of things that you're gonna have to think about, that Mark isn't gonna have to think about, that Bruce didn't have to think about. None of us who have done it for a while have to think about. We can concentrate on making it an art. And really, being a good first assistant is absolutely an art. It's all about timing, it's all about understanding the shots, and by God, you may do 50 close-ups, and they're all the same, but you're gonna get some complicated shots, and if you don't understand what goes on in that shot, what goes on in the eyepiece, if you don't see in here, or on the monitor, what's in that eyepiece, and what that operator's seeing, you're gonna get toasted, I guarantee you. So it's a whole process of learning. But take that process as it goes along. You have to learn the fundamentals first, and that's the reason that a class for assistants works. You have to learn the fundamentals. I'm retired for 8 years. I guarantee you I could go back, I was an operator. I could go back and work as an assistant half a day. Man, I'd be just flying along. Why? Because I got the fundamentals. I understand those fundamentals. So setting yourself up to do a shot and how you do it is really important. Because I guarantee you, if you're standing here and you're going like this, you're gonna be here and he's gonna be gone. And you're out, your shot's dead. Makes your operator look bad, makes your assistant look bad, your DP is gonna come over, your director's gonna come over, hey, why'd you guys miss that shot? A lot of little things. Now with lenses and stuff like that, when you look at lenses these days, you'll notice on the edge of the lens, and I don't know how experienced you guys are, maybe some guys here that are really good, maybe some guys here that are new. You look at lenses, you get out there and you look in the light and you see, gee, there's like little rainbows in there. Well, that's coating on the lens. In the old days, they didn't have that. They used to have dust on the lens. The problem is if you don't have something with this glass, you're going to be getting all kinds of little weird things off of there, and it's going to affect the focus. So now you have a lot of stuff. You have the stuff on the lens. In my case, and I didn't work a lot outside like Mark did. I didn't clean my lens off. If it got a little dusty, I go because that dust to me was fine. Now I know you guys are out there, and you're going to have to go out there and clean that sucker off.
Especially in HD.
Well, tell us about the problems you have just cleaning the lens.
Oh man, they worry about the chip. But DIT will tell you, you got a dead pixel. All of a sudden, here goes the red flag. You're taking everything apart. You're looking at everything. And you can never touch a chip. Anyway, okay, it's good. Let's go. And you got to be. I know having the DIT is phenomenal, and I love DITs without a doubt because it's something I could deflect bullets to. But it's still on your shoulders, and you got to. It's a Pandora's box. I mean, it's going to happen. It's not if, it's when. It's going to happen, and how you deal with that, how quick you are to come back and rebound, is what'll make you cut above everybody else. Just being flexible, keeping a positive attitude. Even when they're throwing you the dogs and you're going down burning, you just gotta smile at it. It's gonna happen.
Mark, where do you go to get your manuals for these cameras? They're all online, aren't they?
Yeah, right now it's all online. It's changing every week. I mean, I had like the second red
So if you can keep up with just downloading the manuals, get the Alexa manual, get familiar with this stuff, because it changes constantly.
How complicated is to do the back focus?
Okay, that's going away, thank God. Because the first, like I said, when they first came out, the metal quality of the mounts were really cheesy. They came from Japan, they were junk. And they were so affected by temperature, humidity, that we had to do it every 2 hours. Every 2 hours, we're pulling out the collimator and checking it. And sure enough, it was off. We'd have to adjust it. And we have to watch the sun, because if the camera would stayed out in the sun, it'd be different. I did an F-35 show, one of the very first ones, and we got all our marks. And we went to lunch. Came back, and all the marks were different, because the camera changed. The camera's a different camera when you came back. Now Denny and all these other people, Denny Claremont, they're taking out all the Japanese mounts and putting in titanium mounts. It's a more constant metal. It doesn't expand and contract due to other factors like the old ones did. They're nailing it down. But the new cameras don't even have back focus. Alex doesn't have one.
Okay.
And
Like, you know, the 11-to-1 Primo still has some of the big lenses, the big pieces of glass have problems. The 11-to-1 Primo has a temperature problem, expansion problem. So if you're shooting, like, especially in the late afternoon, and it turns suddenly, you know, it's hot, and suddenly it turns to evening, and it gets cold really quick, your marks will go right out the window.
right.
And Linda, my assistant in those days, you know, she had a very good way of fixing that. She got a piece of tape, and she just remarked the lens and she found a new witness mark. She put a new witness mark. It turned out it shifted linearly, and it held pretty well. And then in another hour, once that lens had acclimated in temperature, you know, contracted, you know, you're gonna have to check it again. So even with the best cameras, you know, the best lenses, you have to keep an eye on that. You always keep an eye on that.
Can you keep working, like if you're in a rush, can you keep working
Yeah.
like off with the back focus without resetting?
Ooh, that's dangerous.
On a zoom,
That's
it's
putting
very
it on a
dangerous.
chopping block. Because all of a sudden you measure out 6 feet and it's 6'8". Okay, you're the
All
one
the
who's
mat
taking a bullet.
goes out, yeah.
But you know, you're not gonna know because it's different. Every situation will be different.
Some prime lenses, you might get away with it, but a zoom, you won't.
Yeah.
Well, but again, it's know your lenses, because if you're on a 200mm lens, you can shoot if the back focus is off, because you can see exactly
Sure.
what you've got. If you're on a 25, if
And
you're on a wide
25,
lens, you'll
yeah.
never know it, you'll never see
You
it.
can shoot it all out of focus on a wide lens. It's
Gentlemen,
disastrous, you know.
For the Red and Alexa, on a sensor, there's like this glass in front of the sensor. So if it gets dust and stuff on it, what is your way of cleaning it?
You know, that's a great question because it depends how severe your dust is or whatever, hair, whatever it could be. It depends. If you
Just
can
a
deal
normal,
with
I mean, let's say you're doing all these like car shows and the stuff, I mean, you're in the dust 24/7. So pretty much all day long. And the problem is there's dust all over inside.
Inside
So
the
if you
mount.
start, you know, trying to, get it out, you might add more to it.
10-4.
Right.
So what you want to do is you want to put the nozzle of your air gun past the mount, because every time you take a lens out of a mount, it's grinding it off. You get a little micro dust in there. So you want to first of all, make sure your air doesn't have any propellant in it.
Sure.
Because that'll wreck your life. So what you want
Right.
to do is make sure it's blowing just clean air and just feather it.
And that's,
But put the point inside the mount, past the mount,
Right.
not
Target.
in front of it. Then you won't get that metal dust
Sure.
coming in
So
there.
we'll tend to blow stuff out.
But still, it's a crapshoot. And
right. But
and
do you use any of this new sensor cleaning electronics?
I won't touch it. Shit.
Right, right.
Sorry, I won't touch
That's
it.
same thing.
We were on a Alexa pilot, Bruce and I, and we had that on the big camera, and we could see the dust
Right.
you could see it on the monitor.
Right.
And so they did exactly what Mark said. James Takata, just very gently, but I wouldn't touch that sensor.
Not in a million years.
There's another question that's kind of related as on these new cameras, you never had this problem in film, but this double imaging you get, like let's say something happened on the Red or Alexa with the viewfinder or so on, and sometimes you get like the same kind of double imaging you would get on the filters if the light was hitting from the back. You get it on the camera. So
Without a filter in front?
Without a filter, nothing, clear filter.
So you're getting a double image?
On it. I mean, I just did a rock video. We had like, we were looking at it and it just, you see this thing's going.
You got a ghost image.
Ghost image.
What kind of lens was it?
It has nothing to do with the lens. It was Lomo, but it was Lomo, Russian Lomos, and it was modified camera, the special lenses. So we had like Arc 19, mount for the red. But it was that. I mean, it was working fine the other half of the day. So the problem was the viewfinder stopped delaying, and it was causing this ghost imaging.
I've never seen it. Ask the Alexa guys here to
Right.
That's a good question.
Were you getting that on the DIT monitor?
No, that's what's the funny part. You wouldn't see it on the monitor.
No, but it was just the operator thing, right?
Right. But you see it in the thing, and then when we check it inside, when you go to Red City and stuff, and you see it was there. But my question is, when we called, they said, oh, you might want to check the sensor, and if it's, and I don't think that would be the case, but I'm not double checking with you. Like, they said if it's dust and stuff on there, that could cause that as well, which I never.
They said that?
No, I'm just asking. Is that?
The only time I ever had ghost problems was with stacking filters.
Right. Okay.
That's the only time I ever
So
had
there's nothing on.
ghost
There's nothing on. Yeah, I mean.
And then there's, you can tape them, or Panavision's got the, what do you call that?
ARF.
Yeah,
Right.
ARF. And then so then they just angle it.
Right. I mean, the way I tested that ghosting thing, I stopped down, like I underexposed a couple of stops, and then I brought up the brightness of the monitor, so that way you can actually see it is there, because it just, whatever it moves is like, it's happening.
Were you operating?
No, actually I was the DP on it, but it just happened, in the middle of a thing is I would realize this is happening.
So it was an optical ghost, not a digital ghost.
It's a digital ghost.
It was a digital.
But I was trying to look by this question. I'm trying to understand there's other optical ghosts, beside the whole filter thing, which I don't know about, or you guys experienced.
I've never had a ghost unless it was a filter problem.
Right.
In both film and tape. I've yet to cross that path. But I'm sure because you said it, I'll have it tomorrow. Sure as God made apples, I'll have it tomorrow.
Thank you.
What was your name again?
Taking my name come out. Sorry.
Good question.
Let me ask, first of all, any more questions out here? Go ahead.
Okay, so I know, everybody says that you shouldn't become reliant when you're pulling focus on a monitor. And I definitely agree with that, that it becomes a crutch, and a lot of, new guys coming up, especially, in the digital world, are just glued to it and they miss what's going on out. But how do you suggest, like, when you're on, like, a really long lens, like, 250, 275, whatever, wide open, and you've got an inch or 2 inches, if that, of depth of field, is there a way to do that without a monitor?
I've heard the dialogue this morning, and they say, but the face of our business has changed so quickly and so fast, and I'm an anti-monitor guy, that I have to live on a monitor. I have to, I'm sorry.
I'll say, what if the monitor breaks? You're doing the
Yeah,
shot,
and
and
I
it's
know
6:30, the sun's going down,
Right.
and you're on the 800 mil lens, or 150 to 600, and
Yeah.
the actor is running like blazes right down the gun.
Right.
And the monitor breaks.
Right.
Well, that monitor, you shouldn't be using that on that kind of shot I'm talking about. Well, how did we do that? We did those shots without monitors.
Right, exactly. So
how did we do
how
it?
did
Well, you take the second assistant, said, you set marks and use the radios.
Mhm.
And you go 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, I've pulled focus on a 1,000 mil lens.
Yeah.
And, you're not even looking, you're looking out there and watching the pace of the actor.
Yeah.
And the operator is saying, and the operator may be giving feedback, like, bring it closer, bring it closer, bring it closer. Okay, you're good. Closer. So, you're getting feedback there.
Mhm.
The second assistant's calling those marks for you.
But what if it's a matter of
again,
it's just...
we did that without, so what if I'm saying to you, what if the monitor
Like-
breaks? So they do break.
Right.
They do go out. What are you gonna do? You're
Yeah.
gonna just say, I can't do the shot?
Yeah.
We're gonna look at it like
Well,
you're
what-
crazy. You gotta do the shot. So you
What
gotta
about-
you gotta know the whole spectrum
Yeah.
of techniques.
I've literally done that. I've literally gone out and, you have these long things like he's talking about, where you have these long things, and you're busy out there trying, starting to zoom out real slow, and then as the person's moving, you gotta increase the speed of the zoom so that they stay the same size, right? And I've literally gone out and stuck little things in the ground outside of the frame so that I could watch where these things, where this guy was gonna hit. And I didn't put a lot of them out there, you don't need a lot of them.
Yeah.
Again, if you're watching, if you're actually being able to see what's going on out there and you're paying attention, and you don't have to turn your head, just your eyes, and you get a feel of the lens. And believe me, after you've used the lens for a while, you get a feel of it. You know when something's starting and when something's moving and stuff like that. You're gonna look at that and okay, he's about there, about there. You're gonna do those things.
Yeah.
You have to.
Well, I guess my question, I mean, that definitely works when you've got, a foot of depth of field, but when you're down to an inch, my eye, I can't tell if you're
Well, Nikki,
an inch closer or an
That's
inch
where the
farther
Zen comes
away.
in.
Yeah.
That is, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was working on a couple of different shows with a fellow, really great assistant, hated monitors, but because of the pace and because take one's always the rehearsal,
Right.
they had 20-inch Panasonic monitors. They'd set two of them up on a cart. Everything was on a Preston, so it was remote.
Right.
And literally, they got awfully good, both cameras got awfully good at following focus on the monitor.
Right.
It's a different skill set.
Right.
Another thing with a Preston, if you've got someone running toward the camera this way and you're on a remote focus, you can go away from the camera. You can get off more to the
Right.
side where you
Yeah.
can track them this way.
See the
Or
perspective.
run with them.
Or run with them,
Yeah.
Just stay right with them, and
Yeah.
whatever he's doing, you're doing.
I
Okay, so
used to
I-
do a
I
show,
think-
let me just say, I used to do a show called Dear John. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And they used to have, it was a psych show, and a lot of times they'd have the seats put out, which was fine. But a lot of times, they'd have the seats on the side, and you prayed that the actors, and it was this dark floor, so you couldn't put marks on there that you could really see. And plus, the camera's moving, and you got the camera floating. It was a live show. And you got maybe a half a dozen actors out there, and some of them are in their seats, and some of them are moving around. And all you got's a big room like this with a few chairs in there. And what I would do is I would take one little piece of black tape that I could see, because you can't see the floor with it. You're not supposed to see anything off the floor, and just put it out there. And wherever that camera would be at the time, I would measure that black tape, because again, you got this space where there's nothing out there. And I don't care how good you are, if you're trying to do something, you're gonna be off if you're on a tight close-up. And so I could always judge where that person was from what my notes were on my thing versus where that black tape was, and just get a feel of it. And again, it goes back to getting the images in your head.
You'll get references, as I'm sure you know, the corner of a table.
Right.
Or a piece of furniture that's not likely to move,
Right.
until the next scene when the prop people move it 6 inches and don't tell you.
Yeah, I've definitely learned a lot of times now rehearsals don't happen. I mean, a lot of times, a lot of the stuff I'm working on, they're on such a tight schedule that, they don't want to take the 5 minutes to do a rehearsal or whatever. Or because it's digital, 90% of the time I hear the words, "Oh, let's just shoot the rehearsal."
Yeah.
And nobody understands that changes our
That's,
But
I
I
gotta
found-
say, guys, as you get up and work on better and better shows,
Well,
that
yeah.
doesn't always happen.
Right.
It's really, you don't have the time.
Right.
The actors need the time to rehearse.
Yeah.
And that's your time for
Right,
the
but
crew.
everybody thinks now because
I mean,
it's
rehearsing is I actually have not experienced that so much.
really. See, I experience a lot, especially now that everything's digital, because they're like, "Oh, well, we're not burning film; it's cheap. We can shoot the rehearsal."
I know,
Sometimes you have to go up to your operator and bang him on the
Yeah.
shoulder and say, God,
Well,
we need a
in those
rehearsal."
shows, there are no
And
operators.
hopefully,
Yeah.
he'll be the kind of guy that'll say,
Yeah.
hey, guys, can we just get a quick rehearsal on
Right,
this?
but I found, like he was saying, it does help a
Covering your
lot in a world where you're not getting rehearsals. You can kind of get a lay of the room and measure out. Before the actors come out,
During
measure
your
out and say that table is this far and that is this far, and that
During
way.
the lighting time,
Right.
if you can get your operator to work with you
Right.
and fake a rehearsal with
Right.
the stand-ins, or at least, zone the room.
Right.
So you've got a fighting chance,
Yeah.
because they're gonna come out hot.
Right.
And they're gonna get faster as the takes progress.
Mhm.
Actors speed up.
Mhm.
Now they know where they're going, they're gonna get there faster.
Yeah.
So
And
be
they're
ready to
nervous
speed
and all that
yourself
other
up.
stuff.
I have a question.
I'll say, I think another attitude you have to have is you have to actually demand respect for your work. If Mark was describing how, or Nick was describing how, a guy's holding him up because he's measuring everything, making too much of his job and holding up the show. But if you do your job very efficiently and quickly and professionally, and then you say, hey guys, this is tough, we need a rehearsal, you know what? Everybody goes, yeah, they'll do it.
Right.
But if you just go along, you know, and just let it be chaotic,
Right.
then that's what you're gonna get, you know,
Mhm.
so. And then, you know, you're gonna earn bonus points when push comes to shove, and the sun is going down, and there isn't time. There are cases where there's very little time
Right.
for rehearsal or proper rehearsal. If you've been prepared and paying attention, and you know, I love it, you turn to the assistant, you know, turn to Greg Williams and say, Greg, you wanna, he says, no, we got it. It's wow. When the assistants turn to the DP and say, we got it, let's go, we can get it. You see that, and that actually energizes people, you know, and, you know, but you have to, you know, it's a two-way street of all this, you know.
I have a question based on what we were talking about with references. Let's say you're doing a 40mm lens on a Steadicam and you're following the actor running around the room. So one way it worked, it was if you look at the monitor, you can stand by the monitor and just see the frame size and kind of, as you said, like, you know, find the frame size of how it's gonna be. Like if it's like 10 feet away, it's gonna be this size. But what is your way of doing it? Like if to be able to, I mean, the guy is gonna be running around all over the room, so you can't really mark it.
To wing a shot like that?
Right.
Well, I hate to say it, but Cinetape give you a fighting chance. Cinetape or Penetape will help you out a lot. Like when I'm up against it, I'll look at the focus assist on the monitor, the Cinetape, and the actual.
But you run with the guy now. You run with the operator.
Yeah, you run with them.
And Mark, will you try to stay away from the camera so you can get a more
Yeah,
3D perspective?
I used to
Getting
assist-
away from the camera on the Steadicam.
I used to assist Steadicam exclusively when it was a real art, you know, and I was like over there. Like, it'd be the actor and the camera, and I'd be hiding somewhere, and I could see the references. I'd just all day long. It was the best way to work, you know.
But also, he knew the lenses, he knew the field size of 40
That's
would
right,
give him.
right, of course.
And the depth of field that.
Because the way I see it being cheated is like you stand in front of a monitor and kind of learn the frame sizes, and by frame sizes you kind of know where they are. But that doesn't always necessarily works because it's
Right.
you know, it's just one way to do it. But
Different
it's,
chips are giving
Plus-
us different aspect ratios.
That way you're playing video games and
Right.
you're reacting to seeing it go out of focus and then you bring it back into focus. And
no.
the
What I'm
ideal
saying is,
to-
let's say he walks from here to here, so you kind of put that frame size as a 10 is gonna be on this, and it is a video game.
Yeah, but the frame size,
Right.
knowing the frame size for the focus puller, you need to know the frame size so you know where the camera's pointed. So if the operator's doing a dip and a tag,
Right.
you know, to the actor's hand, you need to know, is he on the actor's hand or is it on the arm and so forth. But for the focus, you don't need to know that frame size. You just need to know that distance.
Well, I understand. I'm saying you use that.
Concentrate, it's the
Right.
different parts of the shot you need to know. The distance is very critical. And other parts of the shot is the distance plus exactly
Well, how do
what
you
is in
guess
the
that
frame.
distance? That's what I was saying. Because when the guy runs around, it's
Practice.
Practice, that's practice.
Right, of course.
And
Yeah,
the
I
other
used to say 4x8 sheets of plywood. I would visualize 4x8 sheets of plywood, 4x8s, 4x8s, 4x4, and then 2x4, and then you know, 2, 2, 2. So I just visualized a little grid. I'd see it with the actors, and I got to be able to judge.
But you a stander or you were running with the operator?
I didn't do Steadicam as an assistant, but I did you know, did dolly camera.
See, Richard was saying he stands next to or behind the operator. I used to stand right at the film plane so that I was judging the distance from my eye to the subject. So I would get as close to the film plane as possible, and you would just learn that it's 9 feet from me to you, and it's 10 feet, and it is Zen, but you would also really know those distances.
When they're running?
When they're doing anything.
Right.
As long as your eye is by the film plane, then it's the distance away from you. Now, when they're running and you get off to a third axis, then you're judging the distance between 2 points. But it's all just experience and practice doing it, and you can practice that at home just with a tape measure, and you sit there and say, okay, how far away is that wall? And you test it, and you go measure it. You can do that all day, and you just get better and better at it.
Yeah. And when you're the second, you know, if your first likes you and you show it, you're professional, responsible, first will say, hey, I gotta take a phone call. You know, my wife's calling, my kid has a problem in school or something, take over. You should be ready to take over. Another thing, be ready to move up in a moment's notice. If you're the loader, be ready to be the second. If you're the second, be ready to be the first. If you're the first, be ready to operate. C camera is coming on. Greg, jump on that C camera. Bump up. Everybody bumps up. Because, I don't look at the crew as assistant cameramen. I look at them as assistant cinematographers. You're all assistant cinematographers.
If you
And
worked
and
on-
I expect you to have the ability to, jump into the breach,
If you worked on a show that I was the first on, and you did a good job, and I knew you wanted to learn, I got you doing shots. At the very least, you got doing rehearsals. I did a thing called duet. We did 70 of those. Twice they came back and complained about shots. One of them I blew because of my ego, which I'll get into later on. And one of them was because I let an assistant, my second, do a pickup. It was a simple pickup, just, out there, somebody walks forward, after the show's over. And, I was kind of disappointed that my operator didn't pick it up. He didn't say anything. But that was one of the 2 shots they came back on and said, hey, what happened here? We needed that shot and you didn't get it. It's 70 shows, 2 shots. Well, if you're gonna let somebody do these shots, if you're gonna get them out there doing it, you're not gonna throw them under a bus. It's your responsibility. So I didn't say anything. And your good assistants don't say anything. If you're good at what you do, you have big shoulders, people understand, they expect you to be good, and they know you're gonna make a mistake every once in a while. Trick is not to make the same mistake twice, and don't make them very often. So, but if you're good, you teach people. That's why we're here, because I like teaching people. These guys are here because they believe in teaching people.
If I rephrase the question, the moving shots obviously they're harder, and there's I mean, I understand, but the experience is easier. But if someone doesn't have that experience and they have to pull off the shot, you're working with AC, doesn't have the experience, you have the moving shot you gotta pull. And I'm a DP, so my background is lighting.
Right.
So I was trying to see what you guys suggest in that moment to tell the AC, which necessarily doesn't have that experience, and you have to still have the shot.
Mark gave that example, where
Right,
we had this difficult shot, and the director wanted to be on the dolly, but I had other shots that were moving.
Right.
It was multiple camera shots, so we had to get this guy's close up, and the actor was coming out, falling, and getting up in a different spot each time. He wasn't matching, so finally I said, well, so just don't move the camera, because it's going to be a great shot. I didn't feel any compromise, and I had other, I knew the editing of this thing, so I knew that this, by having this shot, is going to get a ton of motion in it anyway. So I wasn't compromising anything, and there's all these other moving car shots and whatnot in it. So, I mean, you try to, since I have pulled a little bit of focus in my time, I try to analyze and pay attention to what the problems are. And also, like Mark said, watch the dolly grip. Maybe the dolly grip's causing the problem.
Well, this is the most Steadicam.
There's many, or Steadicam. The Steadicam operator, you can't give them marks. You have to mark them too. You can mark them. You can put little dots down. You make the operator not hold the shot.
Right, but if the actor moves, then he has to move.
I know, but it's
constant.
constant. But if the Steadicam operator is drifting, that I've seen that a lot. It's not the actors. The Steadicam operator, he'll land and drift, or he'll and then again, not critical on 20/28. On a 40 or 50, 75 bill on the Steadicam, that starts to become critical. Yeah. And can you, as a DP, can you give them more stop? My assistants with the Alexa. My assistants would come to me, I could see they were I could anticipate almost, I can almost feel their problems coming in this particular sequence. And I bumped up the exposure index, so let's gain another, 3/4 of a stop, so you get more depth.
Right.
It's also, it's a collaboration,
One of the things you gotta do when you're working as an assistant or an operator or anything, you have to be able to edit the stuff in your head, because there's gonna be times where you're gonna really screw up a shot. And they're not gonna use it, so you try not to say anything. Again, doing sitcoms. Now, I know in single camera, everything has to be perfect, right?
Yeah, hello.
But you still need to be able to
Yeah, but there's clear communication. I mean, Bruce will tell you this.
Yeah.
The assistants or the operator will come in. We're doing multiple cameras. Again, single camera, but it's like 2 cameras or 3 cameras shooting. I can't watch all these monitors.
Right.
I'm paying attention to some lighting on the actress's face. and the assistant or the operator come in and say, you know, we were good, they'll make a report, a verbal report, and they'll say, this part of the shot was this, right here on this line, we missed her, we buzzed her here, you know, Bruce said, you know, and I say, that's fine, and if I'm sure, I'll say, it's okay, or if I'm not sure, I say, you know, so I'll say it to the director, I say, you know, we buzzed her on this line on this take. And the director will say, no, I got it, that wasn't good. You know, because we're not analyzing the acting. And the director may say, no, I like take 5 better anyway, I don't need that portion.
When you do
So that open communication is very important, don't keep secrets. You know,
Be ready to give that information as soon as they cut.
And right as they cut, yeah, don't discuss it, go right over to the operator or the first to go to the DP and say, I buzzed her on this, let them know.
Also, if there's a technical problem with the camera, the sooner you
Right
tell them, the
away,
better.
yeah.
And don't ever hide anything, because you may get away with it that day, but the next day they're gonna find whatever the problem is.
Not
So
just that, you're gonna
don't-
lose confidence, your director of photography is gonna lose confidence in you, the director of the company's gonna lose confidence in you if you let that stuff go by.
Yeah, I mean, I could, you know, when we're flying, you know, I can do another setup in 2 minutes. We can, you know, I've already told the gaffer and grip already know what the next lighting setup is, and we're gonna do a little change, and in 2 minutes, we'll be ready. If you diddle around and discuss, and gee, should I say anything about it, 30 seconds, a minute ago, we've broken the setup, the actor's, you know, gone, left the set, you've impeded progress, you know. Because, you know, we do, on Ghost Whisperer, we averaged for 5 years, 58 setups a day.
Wow.
That was our average, 58 a day, with 2 cameras, but 58 a day. Now, so that means some days we did 158 setups, you know?
What does that tell you though? That tells you, as far as the camera department goes, the second assistant, the first assistant, they've gone to the AD, they've gone to people and they said, what are you gonna do? What do we need? And they've had that camera sitting there, say they're gonna need another camera for such and such situation, or they're gonna need some equipment. That stuff's sitting on the cart, ready to go. If you're gonna move sets or something like that, they get there, they're set up, they're ready to go. Last thing you wanna do is be the guy who holds up the next shot or holds up the whole company. Because I guarantee you, they're gonna look at you and they're gonna remember you held up the whole company. One of the tricks I used to do, because I always, you know, a good assistant, you're gonna have to depend on your operator's eyes. And I've literally been hired to come in on sitcoms for a situation where they had to let somebody go, and they told me right up front, your operator, he's not gonna be able to tell very well if you're in focus or not. Made a deal with him, I says, look, and they love the guy, he's a great guy, I loved working for him, this is years ago on Rhoda. And I made a deal with him, I says, look, you know, I'll do all this stuff, but I want one agreement from you. That if I go to you and say, I need another take, or I have a problem, you're gonna go to bat for me if I need it. So one of the tricks I learned over the years was, if I'm going on a new show and I've got a brand new operator, first thing I'm doing is checking the lens. Well, I'm not just checking the lens. I want my operator's eyes out there and I'm out there with a tape and something so he can tell focus. I'm checking his eyes, because I'm living or dying off of that guy's eyes. He had great eyes. I lived a lot off of his eyes. He saved me a lot of hassles. But there are operators out there, not as many as there used to be. In the old days, when it was harder to get in the union and it was very limited, I worked with a lot of operators who, quite honestly, my job category first was keeps operators working, because a lot of these guys didn't work much before I got there, they didn't work much after I left. But I made sure that I understood that their eyes, that they could cover my butt. Because, you know, we're talking a lot about focus, and really, that's important. But also zooming is equally as important. To me, that's always been the art. I could always focus. That was the easy part for me. A lot of guys maybe can't. But again, focus again is trusting yourself. It really is. But I need to understand whether that guy can see if I'm having problems or not. A lot of old operators get cataracts, and they can see pretty good, but they're a little soft, so they can't tell when it's quite out of focus. You know what I mean?
Unfortunately, though, with the new high-def cameras, the operator has lost the ability to be able to see whether it's in focus or not. So you have to have the director of photography pay attention to it and a big monitor. Because on
Yeah,
those little monitors,
we use the radios. I mean,
Yeah.
we're all on headsets, and you know, this is like an advantage of a DIT. where the DIT it's not a digital job he's doing. He's on the headset and he'll maybe whisper to the first assistant about the focus. Because even the first assistant's HD monitor isn't good enough on the camera. You can't see it because you're watching. Also, there's too many things to watch. You have to watch that actor for their dips, and they can't see it. The monitor isn't quite giving it those, and so they can call from the big monitor and say, "Bring it forward half an inch."
And if you're doing a
too
really
deep,
tricky shot, especially go over to the DIT or the director of photography and say, hey, please pay attention to focus on this shot, because half the time they're looking for other things, but it's only the person at the big monitor that can really tell you if you have focus or not. It's,
Give me 2 seconds here. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce Richard Mosier, one of our really great feature assistants. Tell us some of the shows you've done.
Thank you.
Am I embarrassing you?
Oh, yeah.
Good, my pleasure.
Sorry I'm a little late, a little family issue that I had to be taken care of today. Shows, well, I can't tell you the name of the last one because I had to sign a contract, but.
Tell us about the Spider-Man.
Oh, I would never use that word.
Okay.
But yeah, everybody's got internet, go look up Fiona's Tale. Prior to that, Bucket List, Seabiscuit, Green Hornet, National Treasure 2, Night at the Museum 2. Mostly feature stuff. I dabble in TV now and then to fill in some days, and I do a lot of commercials in between.
Why don't you go ahead and talk about some of the things that, maybe your harder shots, maybe some of the special equipment, some of the way you prep, things like that. Just kind of enjoy yourself a little bit.
In front of an audience?
Sure, ramble on. Believe me, I can learn some stuff from Richard myself.
Oh, no. No, because, when I walked in, I could never have done a 3-camera show. It would have just freaked me out, what you guys did.
Well, I tell you a story about that. We used to love to get, there used to be 3-camera shows, and one of the things we loved to do when they would want an extra camera, because we were in those days the second-class citizens, back in the 70s, we would go out and try to find the best feature and best feature assistant and operator to bring in and watch them go crazy when they had an audience of 300 people behind them and doing a live show.
Yeah, I went in when I was a pretty new second assistant and went in on a couple of shows, and I watched the first assistants with these incredible notes on the side of the mat box and went, how do you keep track of all this stuff? It's hard enough just doing one shot with a few moves, but what I found, Barbara, you're enjoying this, aren't you?
Can't leave.
Like I said, most of the stuff I do is feature work. It's basically the same camera unless we're in the high-def world these days. It's the same principle. You're laying down marks. Some of them are where you hope the actors are going to stop, and some of them are, there's a corner of a couch here or a throw rug on the floor, or maybe if you're in a school hallway, there's a clock on the wall or this door and whatnot. But it's all the same principle. You're getting to know your geographic territory. And whether people tell you, do I have to use this microphone or can you all hear me? Or? Yeah. Okay. No, I don't know if they can use this.
Yeah, they're just recording it.
Oh, okay. Whether you're trying to judge somebody that's 40 feet away or somebody that's 5 feet away, it's about getting to know that actor and how they're going to be and what they're going to do. Because some actors are very, very good at hitting their marks. And dolly grips are very, very good at hitting their marks. But not everybody's going to stand the same way. Everybody's got a little different posture or a little different movement. And what I have found over the years is that I can get pretty good at judging whether somebody's 8 feet away or 8.5 feet away or 9 feet 2 inches away, but it's more about anticipating and understanding what they're going to do. And now we don't have one here, any kind of electronic measuring device. You asked for my front box too, but
That's okay.
they just both got shipped off to a job, so. There's tools you can, use. I mean, the basic thing is you start out just by going out and measuring the set. You watch the rehearsal and see where people are gonna be. And the second assistants that I work with understand how I'm trying to read what's gonna happen. And we lay down the marks for the actors. He lays down the marks for the actors. And then we lay down focus marks. And now we have all these little tricks and things changing with high definition. There's devices that go on the camera that will kind of read where somebody is. They may tell me that you're 9 feet 2 inches from me, but if you're wearing a baseball cap, it's not going to be that accurate. And if you're standing next to somebody else, it's not going to be that accurate. So it's just a tool to get an idea that you're in the ballpark.
When you focus, do you focus right on or do you focus a little before and close-ups?
If I'm unsure exactly where I should be, I come forward a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's because the mechanics of most lenses, especially on film cameras, the mechanics is that the depth of field will carry 1/3 forward and 2/3 back, 2/3 back, whatever it is. So you may have 2 inches forward and you may have 4 inches back. It's a little bit different on the high definition cameras. It's more critical and it's more of a 50-50 split, I find.
About half.
I just know characteristically for me that I seem to, and I get this from the operators, thank God for them. I usually find that somebody will tell me that I'm back a little bit. If they say you're off a half an inch, they'll say come forward. More often than not. That just seems to be a characteristic that I have. Besides electronic devices now with the high definition cameras, something that's changed so much, and this is what you were saying when I walked in, the operators aren't seeing the incredible image through the viewfinder.
An optical system.
An optical system.
So how do you trust? Is there any way to trust that you've got it right then?
Well, on the last show, the one that we can't speak of, I finally broke down and bought a high-def monitor for myself. I mean, I've always had one on the camera, a small monitor, not a high-def, but a small monitor on the camera, that I've used mostly just to see what the operator's actually framing on. But I finally broke down and bought a high-definition monitor, a 17-inch monitor that I keep by my side, and it's as high a quality as what the digital imaging technician, or in this case, the 3D people were looking at. And although I don't look at it all the time, if somebody's doing a shot and somebody's walking towards me, I use this good old technique of marks on the ground and where things are in the room. I can glance over it at the last second and see if I'm there. Or in some cases, I won't even look at it. I'll have my second assistant will sit there and watch it. And we have this series of hand signals that he'll say, I think you're a little bit off here. You need to come forward a half an inch. And the monitors, they're truly incredible. And I know guys that pull focus strictly at looking at the monitors. I don't do that because I don't think it's fast enough for me.
You're always following the monitor.
I feel like, I'm always just that little tiny bit behind.
Whereas if you're looking where the action is, you can anticipate it.
I'm reacting to the lady who's writing with a pen right now, just leaning forward 2 inches. If I'm looking at the monitor, it's already happened. And in some of the video systems,
There's a delay.
there's a huge delay.
Try operating off a monitor with a delay in it.
I don't even want to look at that.
Yeah, I really, I can't even imagine doing that. And that's a problem you have with the, when you're on a remote head an awful lot, or on a crane. Because once you go through the whole system, there ends up being I'm gonna call it a 4 or 5
It's a
frame
4-frame delay, yeah. In many systems, 4 frames is normal.
What we ended up doing on the last show was, besides all the other cables that were coming out of the camera and feeding the 3D people and Video Village and the digital imaging technician, we just brought one cable straight out and ran it to the Libra head monitor, so the guy would have almost instantaneous picture.
See, what you're getting from all of us guys up here is the action, is what I was saying earlier, the action's out there. You know, you get stuck in here, you're gonna be dead. And you wanna watch what's going on out there. It's really your job. Everything else works off of that. So it's really, focus that attention out there.
Because these digital images are required to go to this station and that and every place else, they go through DAs, distribution amplifiers, that build in a very slight delay. And so what they did to solve that was run a cable direct.
Yeah. Just be, you know, it was just another cable, it was just another pain in the neck, and yeah, it was going through a DA. But it's, in the last, okay, I've been doing this is my 31st year, 20 years as a first assistant. And you know, for 15 years, we all been saying, oh yeah, eventually everything's gonna go digital, it's gonna happen. But the last 5 years, it's just been a rocket ship. And the technology is changing every day.
Any questions? Go ahead, sorry.
Besides the physics of laying out marks, something that a camera assistant said to me many years ago was he used the word zen. And I went,
Really, we've all been through that.
oh, really? What does that mean?
That's what we've been talking about
It
forever.
means you're just gonna know.
May the focus be
I
with
think
you.
he was next door listening to the whole seminar, because he's been confirming everything that you guys been talking about.
Well, see, we're all in the same boat.
The one thing that you guys are lucky about, though, and Mark and I had this discussion last week, Mark said, well, he thinks it's a little bit tougher having the high-def system right now for assistants. But we used to go home with a stomachache after a tricky shot and not know until dailies the next day, and in front of 50 people watching dailies, you'd find out, oh my gosh, I missed that shot. Now, if it's a tricky shot, you will know it right then and there, and you'll get a chance to do it again, because someone can watch a monitor. You can even play it back if you had to.
Yeah.
But there's no more stomach aches because you don't know and because you didn't trust your operator.
Yeah. I didn't get this gray hair when I was 40 years old because.
Hey, look, hey, you got hair. I don't want to hear it, you got hair. One of the things I had to learn as an assistant, it absolutely was one of the things I had to unlearn that was the hardest when I moved up to operator was, you know, to use a football term, you're like a cornerback out there that just got blown for a touchdown. And you just got to forget it and move along. And if you take it home with you every night, because I don't know, on sitcoms, man, I used to do these shots that would just freak most people out. And that's what the directors expected. I was the guy who could do them, so I loved doing them, so I did them. But by God, if I had to take that stuff home at night, I would have never slept. When I moved up to operator, all of a sudden I had to remember the angles, the shots, what it looked like, and I had to retrain my brain to do operator things rather than being an assistant.
But you're still very cognizant of the assistant and what they need and, and that cooperation.
I mean, what do you guys look for? I mean, Bruce, Doug, you guys are terrific operators. You've been operators for years. What do you want out of your assistant?
Coffee?
Well,
Coffee.
Starts in the morning, maybe. A sense of trust, primarily. I have to trust my assistant to tell me if there's a problem, if they even think there's a problem. There are so many things that a director of photography has to watch, that the operators are watching. We're always watching things to protect the DP's back and the assistant. We're kind of where it lands. We're the ones looking through the cameras. They say at SOC, we see it first, or we used to see it first. So to have shorthand, to be able to whisper to your assistant, come forward or back, or what's next?
Let me know when that guy's walking in the frame.
Yeah, let me know,
You know?
yeah, when they're coming in, because sometimes you'll be set on a shot and there's a blind entrance. Someone's gonna come roaring into your frame and they want you to pick him up and take him over here. I can't see him out there, but my assistant can say, and now, and I just start going. So that sense of trust, that sense of the assistant knowing what my problems are and being cognizant and trying to help. Mark Riley, who's an absolutely terrific assistant, has the sharpest eyes of anyone I've ever worked with. He spots problems on the set that maybe I haven't seen because I'm watching it for actor things. But to be able to come up and say, do you see this? Or, what about that? It all makes the team look better.
It does.
And it's all about the team.
It is all about the team, and what I found is that if, beyond worrying about focus, whether it's during a rehearsal or quite often, a lot of times it only happens during a take, because that's when things really gel, is if I can spot something and I can see it and I can get the information to my operator and let him know, it also builds a certain confidence that he knows I'm paying attention to stuff. And then you end up start working together and everybody feels like you're looking out for each one another, including the dolly grip. And the three of you just end up gelling as a family. And I've had dolly grips that, will have missed their mark by an inch or something like that, and they'll lean up and tap me on the shoulder and just go, and let me know. Or I've had dolly grips that have said, now look, if the actor misses the mark, do you want me to miss the mark by the same amount to make up for it? Or do you want me to hit the mark? And you hit your mark, I'll take care of the other problem. But you end up working as quite a team.
And that's one thing that we really haven't touched on yet, but there is a fourth or fifth member of that camera crew, which is the dolly grip.
Yeah.
The dolly grip's really, in fact, Vittorio Storaro, or all those years he was shooting movies, the dolly grip was part of the camera crew.
Yeah.
He insisted, and even when he got it, I don't know what happened when he came over here shooting up to that Italian dolly grip, but no, it's definitely, we cast that person as well.
One year when James Burrows, who we all know, James Burrows, the director, got up and took his Emmy, received his Emmy. First guys he thanked were his dolly grips. Bruce, what do you look for in an assistant when you work for someone? What do you like to work with? Outside of me, of course.
Don't eat onions.
All that bad
You
breath
laugh,
taste.
but good hygiene is absolutely important. I won't name him, but Jim and I worked with a dolly grip. We had a dolly grip who didn't shower. And it got to the point where one of the actors had to come to us and say, can you tell that guy to take a shower, because it just, we can't stand being around him. He's an excellent dolly grip, but he just, I don't know, for whatever reason, his hygiene, he didn't shower, or maybe it was just the way his body metabolized food. But I'm serious. Don't eat onions. You're going to be closer to me than I am to my wife most of the time. And you just, but no, on the work end, I said before, don't make the job bigger and grander than it is. An assistant should be doing the job, but you're not on stage, you're not an actor. If you want to be an actor and you want to say, check in the gate, and have everybody stop and wait for you, then be an actor. It's basically, it's a thankless job. You're going to get noticed when you make mistakes, but nobody's going to compliment you when you do it right, because you're expected to do it right. It always has to be right. But you're not on
But the
stage.
directors of photography will say, hey, Greg Williams, James Takata, he can tell you, I've used assistants year in, year out. You start to rely on your team. The director of photography is not doing this alone.
And some of them will say thank you, but sometimes
Well,
sometimes they won't.
some won't,
Yeah.
but,
No, but some, you know, but basically.
But they're gonna remember you when they're looking
Oh.
in the Rolodex and say,
They'll hire you
who's
again.
gonna be on this
They'll
team,
hire
on
you
the next
again.
job? you know?
One of the things that I found out was, and again, an older assistant told me, you know, you should never be heard. Nobody should even ever know you're there as an assistant. Well, what I did come to find out was, you know, I don't get every shot right. I will never admit to that. But when I finally do, and this is what this other assistant told, he's still work, he's very, very good, he's not that old. But he said, you know, they know that when I finally do speak up, if I finally have a problem, have to say something, they know it's something realistic. And I have, I can tell you a situation where doing a very critical shot, was an actor walking in across the room, I'm gonna say 20 feet, walking up, sitting down at a table, on the corner of the table, and leaning forward and talking to the other actor that was off the camera. And it was an anamorphic show, it was a 180 millimeter lens, and when the guy sat down, this is where he was, and then he was gonna lean forward. And I just looked at the shot and I went, and it was night, you know, so there was no light coming through the windows, and I went, I'm screwed. And I went to this actor who's known to be kind of a difficult person, and I didn't have too much conversation with him, but I'd done another show with him, and so we kind of knew each other, and I went up and said, you know, so-and-so, the only way this is gonna work is I have to stand out here and watch you actually do the shot, do the rehearsal. I don't mean you have to show me where we're gonna sit and when you're gonna stop. I said, I really need you to do the action because it's gonna be very difficult. And this was a guy, like I said, his reputation was not too good for being gentle. He said, sure, no problem. So we walked through the thing, I stood out there with the tape, I followed him across the room, he sat down at 5 feet, he leaned forward to 4.5 feet, went back to the camera, I said, okay, let's do the shot. You know, is he gonna go to 4.5 feet? I don't know, maybe he's gonna go to 4 feet, 5.5 inches, but that's gonna be the difference. But we did the shot, he did exactly what he said he was gonna do. My operator, a gentleman by the name of Robert Presley, said, looks like it was good. The director said, should we do another one? And quite honestly, I said, no, because I don't think it's gonna get any better than that. And we went to dailies the next day. Yeah, I stayed up all night long. The whole night was ruined. I had no idea what's got them. Called the lab in the morning. What's it look like? Well, it looks like it's okay. We went to dailies, and I'm proud to say, one of the proudest moments in my career, I'm proud to say people applauded in dailies.
Wow.
But so, the point being that every now and then, you gotta remain low-key, not get involved, not be telling all the jokes, let everybody else do that, because when you finally do have to speak up that you've got a problem, they'll go, you know, Richard doesn't say too much, but maybe we better ask him for some help this time. Or I should be able to ask for some help this time, I should say.
What about dolly grips? I mean, there's a lot of times that we're talking about, and they're as important to your job as anything else on the set. You get a shot where, you know, for example, you're out here with the camera. I suppose I should do this at least once. We got it.
Better let a professional do that.
I was gonna say, you okay with that?
Hey, with all due respect, you guys know any good first assistants that couldn't teach a dolly grip?
Hey, you know, we've changed jobs every now and then just for fun, and I tell you, I cannot push and go up and down with the dolly at all. I don't know how they do that.
I'm sorry, but I use tough dolly grips on the sitcoms. Right, Bruce? Yeah? Okay. When you get out here and this guy's back here, and I guarantee you, they can, the dolly grip doesn't like you for some reason, or he's one of those kind of guys, he can get you fired real quick, just by missing his marks. But you get shots where you get people traveling and stuff like that, and, you know, I've heard the old bit about, you know, you're walking, you know, you get a shot where you got two guys walking, some guy's walking and talking, and they're just running the dolly. And I've heard guys talk about, well, you know, run a piece of string out there. God forbid the guy actually tips over the string. Or, you know, a lot of different things. have guys along the side. If you got a good dolly grip, he's gonna do your focus for you. He's gonna do your zooming for you. He's gonna put you in the right position. And it's his eyes, and he's gonna be back there, and he's gonna be watching the actor, and he's gonna be pulling that dolly exactly the same pace and the same distance the actor is. If you got a good dolly grip, you don't even have to touch the focus, you know? Or maybe he's gonna go from a single and a guy's gonna step into a 2-shot, so he pulls back. Okay, so he's back a little farther, but you know that, you adjust the focus. So it's really important to get along with your dolly grip, even if they need a shower. And that you get things right. It's just simple little things like that. I don't know, I'm sure maybe you guys all knew this already. There may be a few people in here that didn't know that. You know, and so, you know, again, you're gonna be in shots. Again, I used to do sitcoms, so I'm gonna do it from a sitcom point of view. You get a new show, and all of a sudden, you got an actor who's not just learning his lines and trying to get all this stuff right. He's doing it live like it's a play, and you've got 300 people out there, and I guarantee you that first few shows, I don't care who you are, you know, it's one thing to act in front of a camera with people around that are professionals, and you got people in the audience out there and your friends and family showing up. These guys get nervous, you know, and doing rehearsal is one thing, but when they're doing when they yell roll it, all of a sudden people start leaning in, and that's one of the reasons I used to, like Richard was saying. But my thing was I would always try to pull forward a little bit if I could on close-ups, and especially on over the shoulders. I would try to pull as far forward as I thought I could get away with, because, you know, I don't want the guy's back of the head to be too bad out of focus. A lot of times people talk like this. You want to try and at least get them so that if the editor wants to use that shot, that he's going to be at least enough in focus that the mouth and everything, he's going to be able to use that shot. I don't know. These shots where you got some guy, and they use these all the time, where the editor's out there and he's on the star, and the guy who's back to you is talking like this, and he's still using that shot with the guy in focus out there. It drives me a little crazy. I mean, that's just my thing. You know what I mean? Why can't you know, unless you're really on low light or stuff like that, and I used to, you know, we used to work at 4.3, 4.8, 5.6, depending on what we had, you know, tight lenses, and I guess, I don't know, maybe 75 for an over or something like that, at 12, 15 feet. Are we talking about things that are different?
You got a 4-stop?
4. What's that?
You're talking 1-4.
I'll tell you about a shot later that I used to do every week. I'm like wide open at 7 feet or 9 feet, and going into here, but that's a whole different story. Anyway, yeah, I know we got a 4-stop. You guys get to work outside.
Sorry.
You guys have an 11 stop sometimes. And you guys don't even, you know, you get a guy on a horse with a rope around his neck, and it's a walk-away shot unless the horse walks away first. You know, so, you know, see, these guys get to work outside. So they can sneak some shots. And the phone it in, I'm over eating donuts, let me know when you guys wrap.
Yeah, but they're still shooting at a 2-stop outside.
Yeah.
DPs went low depth
Oh,
field.
I don't even want to do that. Anyway, where was I? Somebody, where was I? Anybody?
I'm walking away.
What?
Dolly grips.
4-stop.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so, you know, if you have enough stop, try and pull forward a little bit. Try and get as much into the shot as you can that's usable, you know? It's really nice. I mean, the editors love the fact that they can stay on something. You know, they don't have to make those cuts. You know, that something doesn't look so weird that they have to cut someplace. The Duet, which was a show I guarantee none of you ever heard of, did 70 of those when Fox first started. And the first season, for some strange reason, we had a feature editor, which was wonderful because, and that was when I was working with Bill Hines. And he loves to do this kind of stuff, and it was great. And you know, in sitcoms, you get the shot, you go here, you get the shot, you know, you're cutting from here to here. What was kind of neat was we would get overs or over twos or stuff like that, and say the guy in the back, in the foreground was walking away. Well, we change the focus and carry him across, and we're carrying him across on tight shots all the way 20, 30, 40 feet across the set. Going to somebody else, and maybe he's turning around talking, you focus on him, or the other guy, or you know, you rack over and you get the other guy and you're doing this stuff. And in sitcoms, you don't get these kind of shots where you're doing stuff. You get them on features, right? Where you're carrying guys around, you're on somebody, you know, you're doing the same thing, and you're going from person to person for, you know, 2 or 3 different people, or it may go on for 2 or 3 pages like that, right? You don't get that in sitcoms. Well, it was great because we were doing stuff like that. And I'd come back the next week, and my friends, the guys on the show come up and say, God, I saw that shot you did, it was really terrific. Well, you know, it's one thing to do that when, you know, when you're doing a single camera thing and everybody's set up for it. But again, when you get an audience in there, and when you get people in there, it's a whole different ballgame. You know, all of a sudden, the tempo changes, people lean forward, you know, the pace changes. The other thing you could always tell, you know, the first few weeks you could always tell with these new actors, they get buried behind somebody or this or that, and so the dolly's floating. And eventually one of them would come up to me or one of the other guys and they'd say, what can I do? You know, am I doing this right? What can I do to improve things? You know, they're finally starting to get past that point we were talking about earlier, just learning the basics and get into the art a little bit. And, you know, I'd say to them, you know, if we don't see you, you're not on TV. So the next week they'd come up and they'd be doing a show and, you know, over the shoulder. And you're literally trapped. You're up against the wall over here. And the other camera's sitting like 2 inches from you. And you can't move. You know, Doug. You guys know. You've been on that situation. And you're stuck. You can't get a shot. And you know you're dead meat. All of a sudden that little head pops out. You know? Ah, he's figuring it out. Anyway, are there some of the other things that the dolly guys do to help you guys out?
I have a question for Richard and Mark. You guys ever use a laser pointer? Somebody says to use a laser pointer on the front of the, under the camera, just seeing as a reference. Do you use that? Is that useful to you?
Used to. Do you say something more? I tried it, and it just, it's like the comment you made about dragging the rope in front of the dolly.
Yeah.
I find if you get too much stuff out, if I get too much stuff out there, I start not paying attention to what's really happening. Now, our dolly grip, who goes by Moose, he'll put the laser down.
For him, yeah.
For him, yeah.
He'll use it, yeah.
But I can't, I find, it's just like when I first started, I'd lay down 1,000,000 marks. That's like, there'd be tape all over the floor. But I just found like, what was green tape, was 20 feet or was that 25 feet? And I just found there became too much stuff to start.
And then the director says, I want this a little tighter. And so your dolly moves in 14 inches and all your marks go right out.
Now you're going, okay, so the blue mark was 25 feet, so now it's 26 feet 2 inches. It's like, crap. Now, the laser, I have one in my bag. I carry it with me. But I very rarely use it myself, and I rely on the dolly grip on it.
Yeah, they're good in really specific cases sometimes. I think what you're talking about is putting a point of laser light in front of the actor so that you can tell he's 6 inches behind or a foot behind as the dolly's moving and you're all moving down the hallway. Something very specific like that, but otherwise you're trying to accommodate, well, okay, the laser's 6 feet ahead of the film plane, and so I'm not at 14 feet, I'm at 8 feet.
Yeah,
by the time you calculate it in your head, it's gone.
And that's what Dick Menardis meant when he said Zen. And again, I went, what does that mean?
Well, I always thought the lasers, I mean, I went to one of the hardware stores and I checked it out. I thought, you know, that'd be pretty good if I was doing a pretty wide shot and I just wanted to kind of get a spot out there. You know, how far, instead of walking out with a tape or just getting an eye focus or something like that, just stick the laser out there. Yeah, it's 15 feet away, okay, I can focus there.
I do have the measuring thing.
The Hilti.
The Hilti, right? The Hilti, yeah. I do have that, and I use that quite a bit, actually. Not when it starts getting close and really worrying about stuff a lot. But I do use it for getting stuff around the room. Again, you know, the chair is at 25 feet and this is over here.
Without having to run your tape out.
Yeah.
Again, it's in the quiet mode.
Yeah, just don't let anybody know what's going on.
Yeah. Just be really careful if you're using them that you don't get anyone's face or eyes. They get really sensitive, and they should.
Yeah.
It's a laser. You know. So, you know, measure furniture, measure people's knees or something, but try to stay away from getting around the face. It really freaks them out.
Okay, why don't we've been here for quite a while, why don't we like take a break?
I just got here.
Close to well, you can stay then.
Nick, there's just one thing I wanted to bring
Sure,
up, and it applies, I think, to, it's the whole camera family,
Yeah.
but dolly grips particularly and assistants. You said, what do I look for? I look for the dolly grip to be there.
Yeah.
And the first assistant to be there when I need them.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm working, I've watched the setup, I've listened to what's going on with the lighting, I know the gaffer and the grip, I know what they're gonna be doing. I'm the one that stays on the camera during that setup to make sure lights don't get in the shot, that sandbags are out of the way, that we can, get through all of that. So I'm watching what the DP has instructed to be done, and I'm trying to make sure that it gets done so that we can get the shot, so that we don't have flares, we don't have problems. But I also need the dolly grip there when I need to move the camera to check something, and I need the first assistant there. And I'm happy to go through with stand-ins and fake a rehearsal on our time, not when the actor's in there, but fake a rehearsal with the stand-ins, but I need the dolly grip, I need the assistant there. And so being there is half the game.
And
I will say this, I have absolutely gotten rid of dolly grips that I turn around and they weren't there.
Along that same line, leave your iPhones in your pockets. It frustrates all of us when people are playing games or texting or on Facebook and you want something and you have to slow it down. I mean, there are some directors that won't let anyone have a phone on the set, which usually isn't the case, but a lot of guys, that when they're sitting around, think it's okay to just sit there and use their electronics, and it's not. It frustrates anybody who's basically it takes your attention span away. So if you have an emergency phone call, go make your emergency phone call. But on the set, leave your phones in your pockets.
Look at the Alexa PDF manual. That's the only excuse.
That's fine. That's fine.
The latest update.
Yeah, the iPads now, you can have, the whole manual right there and check out various things. They can become slates, they can do all kinds of wonderful stuff. But use them for business, don't use them for personal.
Before you guys break, so I'm still here, let me give you the 600 line and especially Romney's extension for the roster information and application. 323-876-0160, and her extension is 239. And then feel free, Barbara, if you need contract questions answered or something like that, give me a holler. I think you're going to want, first of all, to talk to Romney and get some of your things in place.
Romney's the first.
Yeah, that's the one.
Good. Great.
Okay, so, I guess we're gonna head out. Which door do you want to go?
Matt here will lead you over to the building where we're having lunch, and there are restrooms right next door.
It's a college. When we get back, Jim's gonna show this.
Doing all right.
I love
Each one
True logic.